think everyone is familiar with the story, The Emperor Has No Clothes. It's this story where an emperor gets these people to make him supposedly a beautiful robe, but they don't make him a robe at all, and he's walking around naked. But everyone is afraid to speak truth to power, so they ooh and ah over the non-existent robe. And so the emperor goes, and he goes out on a parade, and people are all agog. Oh, look at that beautiful robe, they say to each other and pat each other on the back. And then at the end of the parade, one little boy points at him and says, "Look, he's naked." And the illusion is shattered, and everybody laughs, and they go, "Oh my God, he's not wearing any clothes. It's not a beautiful robe at all." There is a similar game that seems to be played by the media and the establishment and the powers that be right now, tech giants and so forth. But they're playing a game called The Emperor is Naked. And so the president goes out to address the nation, and he's wearing clothes, and you can see he's got a red tie. But he'll start talking, and essentially what they start doing is they all start pointing and saying, "Look, he's naked. Look, he's naked." And everybody starts parroting that. "Look, he's naked. The president is naked. The president is naked." And as long as everybody agrees with it, they believe they're going to shame him into a weaker position, retractions, apologies, something along those lines, clarifications. Just like in the story of the emperor having new clothes, all it takes is one person to speak truth to power. It's like the Stoic philosopher Epictetus says, if there's one man against 10 men in a physical contest, that one man is in trouble. But in a battle between truth and falsehood, one man with the truth can destroy an army of liars. And this is why far-left regimes always end up being violent and repressive and silencing their critics rather than debating them. And you can see this recently. Styx, a political commentator, put up a video defending Trump's statement on the scandal involving disinfectant. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And he pointed out how the media not only misrepresented what Trump said, but misrepresented the science. And I've been watching this guy for quite some time. And YouTube removed that video shortly thereafter and linked it. He then posted a video explaining what he had said and linked to the video on BitChute. And so I'll link to that video. I encourage you to watch it to spread this sort of thing around. Because try as they might, they don't have that power to silence people. But you see, they have to silence any and all criticism because they are pretending that the emperor is naked. And this seems to have some very bizarre consequences. And it looks like we have the next Democrat narrative hoax we're going to have to listen to. And it's China, China, China. You see, the Democrats they've looked at the polling, and they've realized, because of the pandemic, China is pretty unpopular right now. And so they are pivoting. Much like in 1984, where an orator goes from, "We've always been at war with Eurasia," to "We've always been at war with East Asia," mid-sentence, and nobody bats an eye, you're going to see the media pivot from Russia, Russia, Russia to Ukraine, 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 and begin talking about Trump's always been in bed with China. You can see here this headline, "Trump owed tens of millions to Bank of China. The president's financial dealings with state-owned bank complicate his attacks on Biden." And it goes on. It's a pretty useless article. But you can see everyone is playing this game. The emperor is naked. And they're just going to hammer this Trump's in bed with China narrative. And that's despite the fact, of course, we've had a trade war, which has been very hard on China's economy. We've had tough negotiations. He has tried to close travel from China and was called xenophobic. And the fact that the media has been going to bat for China since the beginning, the Democrats ran down into Chinatown and said, "We're open for business." But you see, none of that matters. It has all been flushed down the memory hole. And so it's almost like we're seeing this new narrative in its embryonic stages, and it's going to be kind of awful and horrible to watch it mutate and grow. But I guess, there's always people that anything I say positive about the president, they dislike the video. And I would just warn those of you that go down this path. You are having to join the side of the army of lies. And there's consequences to that. And first of all, the human utopia is not going to be built on a web of lies. But also, they are very personal and very immediate. When you look at someone that has a problem with addiction, say alcohol or drugs or whatever, it always starts out with a very small lie. You say, well, I just do this for fun on the weekends. I'm just relaxing. This is how I unwind. They find this with people that try to quit smoking and fail. It's called cognitive dissonance. It's when you have conflicting beliefs about reality. It's when the truth conflicts with what you are saying and you know it. And so you repress this feeling. What you begin to feel is an emotional pain. And so you're not actually helping, say, your side out there, but what you are doing is you're causing yourself pain. You're causing yourself distress. And how do people deal with it? Well, there's all variety of coping mechanisms. But what you're likely to do is to start self-medicating with unhealthy behaviors, which then have to be further rationalized away, much like the smoker or the alcoholic or whatnot. And do notice when it comes to recovery from addiction, the first step is to admit something that's true, which is something that addicts struggle with mightily, to stand up in front of a group of people and say, "Hello, I'm Bob, and I am an alcoholic." That's after they often have to hit rock bottom. They have to be at death's door before they will say one thing that is true. And so, we can't do anything about the media. We can't control the silliness they're going to, just the pretzels and knots they're going to tie themselves in if this really does become the next great hoax hysteria. But for the individuals out there watching this, I would urge you not to indulge in what you know to be a lie. Don't indulge in what is demonstrably false. Now, there's a lot of things that need more context. There's a lot of things that have a great deal of nuance. But we all know Trump is not in bed with China. And this sort of poisoning the well technique by Politico here is just fake news. That's all it is. It's propaganda. It's politics. And they're just going for one manufactured scandal after another. And what I would recommend is that even if you oppose the president or his agenda, don't join in with this parade. Don't join in with this army of lies, because it's not going to help your side. The news is only discrediting itself. And two, it is actually going to be bad for your mental and personal physical health. I want to share with you an anecdotal story about how far these big tech companies are willing to go to astroturf a false narrative. So my dad is retired and he does some, artsy stuff on Facebook. But he told me yesterday he was chatting back and forth on their messenger program with somebody, and then he said, "Well, I've got to get going. Have a good day." And he was closing down his programs, and he was getting ready to go outside, and he saw the person sent back a message that said, "Nice." He thought, well, that's kind of strange. I would think, you'd respond, "Have a good day also," or something like that. So he went back and looked at the message log, and it put up his message that said, "Have a nice day, I've got to go." But then underneath it, and it made it look like he sent this, was a picture that said, "Happy Ramadan." The program made it look like my dad said, "Hey, I have to go, have a good day," and then sent them a picture that said, "Happy Ramadan," and that's why this person responded nice. They have gone to the point where they are actually watching people's messages and trying to astroturf in this support for what is presumably still pushing mass third world immigration because it brings in cheap labor, keeps wages down, and their votes can be bought. It's truly amazing. And the last absurd instance I want to talk about is if you've heard of this hydroxychloroquine thing. We call it the Trump cure. And so Trump came out and said, we're looking into this, it might work. And so the media has immediately pounced on it, and they hate it, and they say how horrible it is. And now they've been citing a study that says it doesn't work. Well, and I will link to this doctor below that discusses this, and the guy's apolitical, and he's very calm and reasonable, and I strongly encourage you to watch it, because he does a much better job than I can try to do with the medical stuff. But like I often advocate for, he digs into the numbers. Like, don't just take the headlines, dig into the numbers, or find somebody who can. But what it boils down to is they didn't do a study. Like, it wasn't a double-blind study that you would use to test a drug. It was like a post-mortem. They gathered some people, and they looked at the data, and in a sample of 300-something people that had already been treated, and just looked at their records. 28 that had been given the Trump cure died. Well, 18 that had not been given the Trump cure died. So it looks like more people died than were given the drug. Therefore, the drug doesn't work. The issue with this, of course, is there's a limited supply of the drug. And so the people that were getting the Trump cure were the sickest of the sick. And so you would naturally expect more of them to fall ill and die than those that were being treated with other medicine. But this is how dishonest the media has become, even to the point of hurting the public health. And this is where we can circle back to Google, who is now banning videos that contradict their narrative, even when it turns out the narrative as presented by the media and the World Health Organization is wrong. And just like we see where the narrative about Trump being in bed with China is going to be wrong, I am certain that they're going to start suppressing people that talk about how this is a false story. The emperor is not naked. The emperor is wearing a nice suit. He's not mentally unstable. In fact, he's a very stable genius. But at least we know we can still trust the IPCC when it comes to reporting on climate change.